Welcome to BT Podcasts. In this episode, find out what solutions are available for your small business as you navigate these challenging times. This episode is brought to you by Xero.
Amidst escalating economic and environmental challenges, SMEs are at a crossroads. The dilemma they face: how to balance sustainability with financial stability. And of course, the ever-popular being cash-strapped. Higher prices of raw materials and rising energy bills threaten their profit margins, but customers are increasingly demanding sustainable options. What to do? Welcome to Podcast by the Business Times. I'm Howie Lim. In this episode, we get insights from Koren Wines, Managing Director for Asia at Xero, a technology company that provides cloud-based accounting software for small businesses. Koren, good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Howie.
Pleasure's all ours. So we need to talk about some of those other challenges SMEs may be facing as well.
I mean, I think you've almost summed it up. You pretty much don't need to hear from me at all. You've just nailed it in one go. I mean, I think
Great,
the operative the operative word is challenging, right? It is incredibly challenging for SMEs out there at the moment. I think you also mentioned one key word, which was competitive. Like, competition is one of the biggest challenges that SMEs are facing. Did you know that Singapore was recently named the world's most competitive economy?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yes and no, right? Because the thing is that SMEs generally, they run incredibly lean. They just don't have access to the resources that their sort of big corporate counterparts have to throw at things like the challenges that we're talking about today. So even as inflation cools, SMEs are expected to face continued or even intensifying cost pressures. And I think that's the main thing. Managing financial stress remains by far the biggest challenge that our SMEs face in this super competitive environment. In fact, Xero released a report in 2023 called the Xero Money Matters Report. It found that 83% of small businesses had experienced some cash flow issues in the past 12 months. So cash flow issues are at the heart of everything. It impacts their ability to grow, to hire new staff, to invest in new capabilities. And we know that they employ these horrendous tactics. In fact, I've had a business myself, and it's no different to when I was running my own business. They use tactics like not paying themselves, dipping into personal funds. So about a third of our small businesses that we reported on are not able to pay themselves. That's a huge number that are just not receiving weekly income. And about a fifth are accessing their personal savings to stay afloat. And as you rightly pointed out, the ongoing pivot towards sustainability will only make things more complex for SMEs. So disclosing ESG information and adherent to the related regulations, that can be incredibly resource intensive. We're already seeing a whole bunch of sustainability regulations come into place in Singapore, things like the carbon tax, energy efficiency standards, as well as a lot of stricter rules around and expectations on businesses around water and waste management, things like that. These challenges, they are daunting. They're incredibly daunting for small businesses, but I do think that they can present an opportunity for SMEs to innovate, to gain a competitive advantage in some situations through the use, ideally, of technology.
It seems like for years I've been talking about SMEs and they always just seem focused on, I'm cash strapped, what else do you want me to do? I'm cash strapped. I can't be thinking about other things.
Yeah.
But they should be focusing on moving forward. And how can they do that, I suppose? And what do you think is really critical that they do start to think about besides being cash strapped?
Yeah. Look, I think it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Because investing in new technologies can seem daunting and like a big cost, but investing in technology, that is the key to tackling the challenges that we've just started talking about. The right technology can help with growth, it can help with achieving business goals, as well as maintain competitiveness. AI technologies, they can make a huge difference, impact businesses significantly, improve their capabilities, optimize their business outcomes. They're affordable, they're scalable. So solutions for SMEs like automating workflows through use of AI, processes, personalizing customer experiences and creating content, things like that, and mitigating risk through analyzing data, things that you can't do yourself as an SME. There's just so much more. It means that your teams can focus on other things, higher level tasks like strategic planning or revenue generating activities. Xero put out a report recently called our Future Focus report, which was an AI guide for accountants and bookkeepers. And we found that 40% of small businesses in Singapore felt that training and resources on different types of AI and what it can do for them is necessary for their business. So it is well and truly being embraced. As AI use and adoption becomes increasingly mainstream, we're seeing lots of small businesses taking a really proactive step towards finding ways to build AI into their business. And that includes employee training on AI and businesses taking the time to understand what AI bias is and, how to generate clear usage guidelines for them and their employees in the business. They're also taking advantage of a whole bunch of public sector initiatives like, for example, the generative AI sandbox that can provide opportunities for them to experience Gen AI solutions across marketing, sales, and customer engagement.
So we're talking about digitalization 2.0 almost.
Yeah.
But some are still stuck in that I can't digitalize, or like you said, they find tech daunting. What else do you think is holding them back?
Yeah.
Because the answer always seems to be, adopt tech, that's really going to help you. But there's still this reticence.
There's so much.
Yeah.
And some of it is psychological. We do see all of the regular obstacles, things like businesses or business owners will see all of the work that's ahead rather than the outcomes, the up of the slope rather than the down the other side of the slope. There's choice overload, there's change fatigue, all of the regular obstacles we see. But the biggest barrier to digital adoption we find are costs. Having the resources to be able to throw at making a change, even without change on the horizon, contributing to rising costs. You mentioned them at the start, right? Things like rising energy costs, logistics, higher costs of hiring amidst what is a really tight labour market still. A tight labour market is a huge challenge for successful adoption and implementation of technology. So I guess, when cost is seen as the barrier and also, it's the only thing to get you through that, it is fabulous to see the initiatives that the Singapore government puts in place, making a huge difference to first of all, close the talent gap that they're seeing, and specifically in the tech space. For example, the government's working on a pipeline of AI talent through training initiatives like postgraduate programs and visiting professorships, allocating, I think, around 20 million Singapore dollars to things like the Singapore Digital Scholarship Program. There's support measures like the $1.3 billion investment in enterprise support package, which offers financial relief to businesses experiencing hikes in wage bills, rental, utility expenses, that kind of thing. So yes, things that are holding businesses back, but we also see a lot of fabulous support and the right mindset coming from businesses as well.
Why do you think some of them are really underutilized? They sound great. We'll find out in just a moment. We've been speaking with Koren Wines, who is the Managing Director for Asia at Xero. More in a moment.
And now back to BT Podcasts, brought to you by Xero.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Koren Wines, Managing Director for Asia at Xero. We've talked about the challenges SMEs face, solutions that are out there, and yet, unfortunately, some SMEs still finding it difficult to adopt those solutions that would really help them in their business. So, Koren, what are some of the underutilized solutions you're seeing out there? You mentioned a slew earlier. Some of them, I'm sure, still not being utilized by SMEs out there.
Yeah, good question. Xero spans such a broad range of industries and segments. It's really hard to identify individual solutions, so to speak. But in general, digital tools are underutilized. And I can't emphasize enough that the value of digital tools to solve those significant pain points that businesses are experiencing across all aspects of a business, regardless of industry. So, for example, not all businesses are employing, but some really broad ones are things like HR apps and implementing an HR app in your business if you're an employing business, payroll, reporting, expenses, inventory management, logistics, point of sale. I mean, you really could go on forever. If you're not digitalized in these areas, there is an app for everything, and this is where you get the benefits. We've actually got, a lot of people don't know this, but Xero has an app store with over 1,000 apps in it that connect seamlessly with Xero and bring data seamlessly between where you're collecting it directly into the Xero platform. That is life-changing when you've been doing things manually previously. I also think that 1,000 apps can sound incredibly overwhelming. So my advice around this is take time to look at the pain points in your business. So just pause for a second, which again can be hard when things are lean and tight. Pause for a second and look around. Often you'll see 3 key things in your business where you're spending money, because time is money ultimately. So large amounts of time spent on anything that's repetitive and manual, that's a key pain point where you can look at automation and an app. Another one is where you're seeing costs because of errors. So data might come in and you spend hours. I don't know if you've ever had a business of your own, but I have spent hours and hours looking, knowing that a number isn't right, and then having to backtrack through timesheets or, pieces of paper that go to the depths of darkness, trying to find trying to find where this number has gone wrong, if you know what I mean. So looking out for where you're finding those inaccuracies, because AI and technology will get rid of those inaccuracies straight away, human error. And then where are you finding it hard to employ people or hang on to people? And most of the time that's because they either don't want to do the job that you're asking them to do, or they don't want to continue if they want to progress and do different things or more meaningful work. So there are 3 areas that you can look at your business and go, where am I seeing cost around these 3 things?
So the grants, though, they may stop eventually, or they will stop eventually. So it's looking as though SMEs, based on what you're saying, may not be prepared at all to go at it on their own. And it's so important that you do at some point, right? How long do you want your hand to be held? And don't you want to be independent and profit-making, so to speak?
Yeah, look, it's tough. I mean, a few observations that suggest to us that beyond support, SMEs may struggle with the cost of digitalization. We hear that local SMEs still rely heavily on government grants to fund their digital transformation, and the stats tend to back that up. So government figures indicate that when it comes to tech adoption, more than 90,000 SMEs have benefited from the SME Go digital program, which is phenomenal. And that's just that one alone since its launch in 2017. So one example. Likely also driven by rising costs, continued financial support from the government was raised as a top concern by business and industry leaders during the pre-budget roundtables this year. So while the Singapore government has done, I think, an amazing job and quite a unique job globally in helping local SMEs navigate, the global economic headwinds through its broad range of initiatives, like, for example, the Enterprise Development Grant, we believe there's a role actually to be played by the private sector where we can meaningfully complement all these government efforts. So we're incredibly excited to be able to continue supporting Singapore's SMEs with our second Xero Beautiful Business Fund. So we launched this fund last year and it was incredibly successful, and we've just announced the launch this year again. The award categories of the Xero Beautiful Business Fund are designed to help tackle all of the issues that we've been talking about, Howie, by supporting businesses to adopt these new technologies or to develop skills to work smarter and more efficiently, but essentially to provide those funds to give them that buffer to be able to achieve their goals and do what they want to do.
You said funds, I'm there.
Yeah. And I think there's also one key differentiator as well in what we're doing with the Xero Beautiful Business Fund is its eligibility for not-profit organisations, which often isn't the case. And they play an essential role in areas like social services or community building, which is a big, purpose thing for us.
Why so nice? You've always said that, Xero's there to help make the lives of SMEs better. Why?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, and I love that I work for a purpose-driven organization. And remember that for starters, Xero was founded by a guy sitting at his dining table in 2007 who was an SME owner. And he created Xero with the sole purpose of solving the problems that he saw that needed to be solved. And the purpose is to make life better for people in business, their advisors, and communities around the world. So I think in addition to that, SMEs are the backbone of the global economy, right? So they are by far the largest proportion of commercial entities in the majority of economies. In Singapore, the number is 99%. That number sort of hovers around the end of the 90s in most economies.
Yeah, and as a result, it hires something like 70% of the workforce.
Exactly right.
Which is why Xero, you're also looking into offering counseling sessions and such.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. They are essential to creating jobs, to driving innovation, to helping build strong communities. When SMEs thrive, communities thrive. And that includes us. It's like a virtuous circle, if you know what I mean. And from firsthand experience as a former small business owner, I understand all too well how financial constraints can hinder growth. So putting ourselves in the shoes of SME owners here, we can see how tough and stressful running a business can be. And so, in fact, again, coming back to that Money Matters report that I was talking about before, many small business owners in Singapore are experiencing right now an increase in emotional distress. So the top three being stress, 53%, anxiety, 46% reported on anxiety, and sleepless nights, 44%. So we're trying to solve for those kinds of things. We are deeply committed to improving the lives of business owners and helping our customers to grow by thriving and seizing the opportunities and advancements available to them. The Xero Beautiful Business Fund is one way that we can help those customers, and we've also created what we call the Xero Beautiful Business Community around that, which brings small businesses together so that they can share all of those things we were talking about. Stress, anxiety, sleeplessness often come from feeling very lonely and like you're trying to make decisions in a vacuum. Coming together and bringing small business owners together to talk about the challenges that they're facing can significantly help them to progress.
For the deets, search Xero Beautiful Business Fund, Xero with an X, yeah? Koren, I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Thanks so much for having me, Howie. That was fantastic.
Koren Wines is the Managing Director for Asia at Xero. I'm Howie Lim. This has been BT Podcast from the Business Times.
This episode of BT Podcasts was brought to you by Xero. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.